Today what we're going to be doing is ranking all of the possible gimmicks and mechanics in competitive Pokemon VGC to help people get prepped for Pokemon Champions. And we're going to be ranking them based off which ones I like, which ones I think are the most balanced, and which ones I generally like to use in my games, ones I'm really excited to use in Pokemon Champions. We're going to be giving a bunch of examples about how these work for Pokemon players that have not actually seen these in game before, and just to give a quick refresher for how these work, right? This is going to be Terastallization. This is Dynamax. This is Z Crystals from Sun and Moon. This is Mega Evolution from, X and Y. This is Gems, things from like Black and White 2, Black and White. Basically, these used to give a 1.5 boost to the first move that was used. And last but not least is Damage Reduction Berries, which I believe were from Gen 4. We're doing this live on Twitch TV/ThoughtsPlus1. And like I said, I have a ton of examples for how all these different things work. So we're going to be starting off from new to old, and let's just get right into it. And let me know if you guys have any questions. I was going to say, I'm implementing ideas that people left comments for in this video, where I asked people to let me know the sort of content that you guys want to see on this channel. And in doing so, I'm going to be giving you guys a bunch of actual examples in-game to show you guys how all these mechanics work in case you've never actually seen them in-game before. So starting things off with Terastallization. Now, a lot of people know what Terastallization is, right? Terastallization is going to be, let's give a good example of Terastallization. I have this game right here. Now, Terastallization can be categorized into two basic ways of play. You can do the standard way of Terra, which we have right here in this replay, which is basically double dipping an offensive type, gaining additional damage modifiers on that, and going for just a massive OHKO. Basically, when you Terastallize, you can gain a brand new typing, be it offensive or defensive, in addition to your regular typing for stab moves, and just do a ton of damage. Like you see, this Haxorus is able to turn into a bug type. It's able to use a move like First Impression, and you can see we're going to pick up a one-hit KO on this Jugulus. So that's what the base form of Terastallization is. So we call that double dipping. Like Chi-Yus like to double dip that fire and go for that massive heat wave. You see Urshifu Waters usually like to go for that double dip on the rapid strike, like Surging Strikes, and just do a ton of damage. That's one way of using Terra. The second way of using Terra is more defensively, using it to mitigate damage. I have an example here where I have a Kyogre versus a Miraidon, and you guys might be able to tell where this is going to be going here. So we have Ground Terra on Kyogre, holy moly. So Ground Terra, we're able to go for a Helping Hand with our Indity, and we're basically going to see the Grimmsnarl on the Miraidon get absolutely messed up to go for a Light Screen, but realistically, there's not that much Miraidon is going to be able to do to this Kyogre. They go for the big Volt Switch, and not only do they not hit, they're trapped here because the Volt Switch didn't make contact, and we're able to just dump truck a ton of damage in with a Helping Hand Water Spout. So again, that's the two types of Terastallization that are really getting brought to the table here. So where would I rank Terastallization? In an open sheet situation like regionals are, I think Terastallization is pretty balanced because you can see what your opponent has, but in a closed sheet situation, you don't know if they have a Ghost Terra, a Grass Terra, a Double Dip Terra, a Defensive Terra, and I really think the fact that any Pokemon can Terastallize for any reason, remember you can only use one per game, but the fact that anyone can do it for any reason, it doesn't cost your item slot, it doesn't cost anything, that makes it really, really unbalanced in my opinion. I know a lot of people are probably newer to VGC, probably only been playing for a couple years, and they probably think Terra is the most balanced of all time. Realistically, we're going to see a lot more balanced, I think, and when I say balanced, I mean there's a cost to use these things. If we talk about Z Crystals, Mega Evolutions, Gems, Damage Reduction Berries, those all cost your item. There's a dedicated, thing you have to invest in your team building to use these. Versus Terastallization and Dynamax, you can just click those willy-nilly, just let it fly. Do more of an F it we ball, and I don't like that because you can just F it we ball your way into winning matchups you shouldn't and losing matchups you shouldn't. You can misplay by blowing a Terra too. So I would probably put it in the B tier. I think B tier is probably a good place for it. It's a decent mechanic, but it's not one that I'm really that big of a fan of just because it creates way too much variability in the game, and I just don't really ever feel comfortable with Terra. We've been playing with it for years, but I really think if you actually were to go play formats without Terra after playing with Terra for so long, you're going to start to find a lot more honest pins, because what games devolve into at a high level is bluffing or like using oppressive leads to force your opponent to waste their Terra, and then you go all in. And what you're going to realize if you were to play like a little bit of BDSP VGC, or even a little bit of like singles, or a little bit of like a couple older formats like 2019, 2022, 2015, you're going to realize you could get like honest pins with Fake Out and not have to worry about them going Ghost Terra or not going Ghost Terra. There's a lot less reads involved. You kind of just lead correctly, pin things, and the games go as normal. So the weirdness that happens with terrestrialization, I just don't really like all of that chaos that it brings to the table. And yeah, so that's where I would put it, right? Let me know if you agree or disagree. Now let's talk about Dynamax. Now Dynamax is a mechanic that I still don't particularly care for. It's probably my least favorite mechanic if I'm being honest. I have a couple examples of a couple ways that you can play with Dynamax. Now, Dynamax, for those guys don't know, it's going to basically double your Pokemon's base HP. It's going to make them immune to a lot of things like, you know, it's going to make them immune to like Fake Outs, immune to like flinching and a bunch of other weird mechanics and stuff like that. And it's also going to give them access to max moves for 3 turns, and any Pokemon can Dynamax. The max moves basically are like 180 plus power moves that have like a bunch of secondary effects. Like if you use a max Airstream, for example, you're going to get a +1 speed on both of your teammates. If you use like a max Knuckle, which is a fighting equivalent, you get a +1 boost to both of your attack stats. And you can boost all your stats with Dynamax. And so it's one of those mechanics that like we're talking about kind of like the rich get richer in some situations. Like it's definitely like a tempo mechanic. So we're gonna take a look at this game where I'm using a Zekrom and showcase an example of a way to like cheese Dynamax that was very, very popular in that format. I'm gonna be leading off with a Whimsicott and a Zekrom here. And Zekrom was one of my favorite Dynamax recipients in this format for Sword and Shield. They get super big, and then Zekrom's able to fire off so many cool moves. I wish Maxmons weren't a move to Encore. I agree. I think they really should have been like able to be Encored. I think they could have been disabled, right? No, they couldn't have been disabled. You can hit them with those moves, but it doesn't go into effect until after they're gone, right? So what we're doing here is we're going for a little bit of a cheese strap. What we're going to do is we're going to use a switcheroo with our Whimsicott. See, it's weird that like the Maxmons were able to be hit by some moves and like not really some moves. What you can do is you can switcheroo an item like an eject button onto a Dynamax Pokemon using like Prankster, and then from there, if they get hit, they're actually going to be forced out, and then your opponent can no longer Dynamax for the rest of the game. And so you don't really know if your opponent's going to be tailwinding Dynamax moving or switcherooing Dynamax moving. It's another one of those mechanics that because anyone can do it. What if my opponent just like didn't terrestrialize that, or sorry, didn't Dynamax that turn, or didn't Dynamax that target? What if they Dynamax the Stakataka, I would have lost this game, right? But because like, you know, we're hitting all the things we need to be hitting, we force them out. They no longer have the broken mechanic. We have the broken mechanic for 2 more turns, and, you know, we go on to win the game. So I think it's one of those mechanics that, like, it's really, really tempo heavy. It's really, really read heavy. And, you know, some players are really good at playing that sort of play style, but I really think that it forces you to, again, instead of playing the actual game of Pokemon, which I really do feel like a lot of players that have been playing for, like, the past 5 years, let's go back and talk about Terra, right? Going back and talking about Terra. Terra isn't really like playing balance. It's playing the game, forcing your opponent to blow their resource, which is Terra, and then punishing. Dynamax, play the game, force them to waste their Dynamax turns, right? And then you punish them because they don't have any more defensive options, right? And so that's not really what Pokemon is, believe it or not. I'm telling you guys, go back and play like VGC 2011, VGC 2015, 2019, you'll start to see like honest pins, good balanced play styles, and a lot of the players that like pioneered those play styles from back in the day are still really good today. Like, you know, Wolf, Zhang, Joe UX9, all those people, James Beck, they're still like really, really good players today. So I just want to say, like, try using those other mechanics. Let's take a look at another really cool thing that you can do with Dynamax. Another cool thing you can do with Dynamax is there's a bunch of, like, weird interactions that you can have. We're going to be showcasing a strat here where I'm going to be G-maxing my Lapras. Now, G-max and D-max are also different. G-max basically adds, like, secondary effects to a bunch of the other moves. Like Charizard, when it goes for his G-max Wildfire, is able to put, like, a dot on the opponent's team. If you were to use, like, G-max Lapras and go for, like, an ice move, it sets, like, an Aurora Veil. There's so many cool things that you can do with G-max and Dynamax, and I think both of them are like fun mechanics, but there's some pretty jank stuff that you can do, like we're gonna do here. Like right here, my Lapras is going to set, well, you'll see how this is going to go down. My Lapras is going to max guard, which is basically like a protect. Remember, Gmax and Dmax moves go through Protect too, just like Z moves. They do a ton of damage through. I think it's like 25% through Protect. But what I'm doing is I'm using Max Guard boosted off of Perish Song, right? So when I do that, watch what happens. I go for a Max Guard. Now that actually clicked Perish Song, because Perish Song turns into Max Guard. And then I'm able to click Copycat, and because the last move that was used was Lapras's Max Guard, which is Perish Song, you get priority Perish Song. Like, it's so sick. It's like the coolest thing. Perish Song, right there. Oh my gosh, so nuts, right? So that's another cool thing you can do with Gmax. You could also do the same thing with Trick Room. Any sort of status move turns into Max Guard. So you could go for like Copycat Priority Trick Room. And there was like a bunch of like really, weird mechanics that you could do with Dynamax. That being said, I wonder where I would put it. I would honestly put it all the way down here. D for Dynamax, right? I'm not a fan of this mechanic. I really did not like the tempo that came with it, the amount of cheese that came with all those like Max Guard things or switcheroo shenanigans and stuff like that. And honestly, if you ever found yourself like, if your opponent got a KO on your Maxmon on like the first couple turns of the game, you just lost the game. There's no way to really come back because Gmax and Dmax moves go through the Protect, and while they're doing all that damage, they're buffing all of their teammates. They're getting them defense boost, special defense boost, speed boost. They're changing the weather, right? It's so oppressive. It's like, it was such a crazy format. We had a couple formats, I believe, where like it wasn't as big of a problem, but I do think that it was not a very balanced mechanic. I did not really like it all that much. Again, similar to Terastallization, it just didn't cost a resource. You could just be like, oh, you know what? This game, I'm gonna Dynamax my Entei because I don't want it to die. I want twice the HP. I want to be immune to everything. I'm just gonna do it on Entei this game. F it, we ball. And it's hard to pin people that are just doing things on whims. I feel like when you're playing Pokemon, like let's imagine if like you're playing chess, right? And imagine if like when you're playing chess, you know, you're trying to set up these pins and like trying to catch people in situations they can't really get out of, and like forks where you're pinning multiple pieces at once, and like any piece can just turn into a queen for like 3 turns. That's what Dynamax feels like. People can be like really stingy and be like, no, I'm not giving you this pawn. It's a bishop now. Like, get out of here, you know? I just think it was such an unbalanced mechanic because like people, you don't know whose fight or flight responses are going to be triggered so early, so people might blow the resource in a situation where like they realistically shouldn't be, and if they like crit you on top of that and get like a stat boost, you just lose the game easy peasy. Let's talk about Z moves. Z moves were similar to a bunch of the other mechanics, like big tempo pieces, but basically the thing about Z moves is they costed your item. They held your item, any Pokemon could hold them, and what they would do is they would turn one of your moves into like a single target nuke that actually went through Protect, did significant damage, and was basically like a delete button on anything. Like if you were, basically we talked about the double dip of Terra before, you would basically double dip and use it as a single target nuke on something. There was a bunch of different types of Z moves. Some of them had specific effects. You could even use Z status moves and get a bunch of other special effects as well. So what I'm going to do here is show you guys a bunch of Z moves, and let's start off. We're taking a look at this match from me and Enosh from 2017 San Jose Regionals. I will say, before we actually take a look at some of the Z move content here, I'm the only player that has played on an official TPCI stream and successfully used 3 different Z moves in a single best of 3 match. And to do that, I actually had to have the 3 different Z crystals locked into my team, which means my Garchomp had a Z move, my Tapu Koko had a Z move, and I believe my Raichu had a Z move here. So we're taking a look at this match versus Enosh here, and I have Raichu and Garchomp on the opposing side, and I believe this turn I'm going for like a fake out Tech Rage into their Porygon. So Tech Rage basically turns Garchomp's AoE Earthquake into like a massive single target like nuke destruction. Porygon is a really, really bulky mon, and I believe their Porygon was like full HP defense, but like an Earthquake would normally do about 22 to 27%. Super jealous of that hair. That's my hair now. Like this was a decade ago, guys. I look exactly the same, bro. Holy moly, for the most part, right? Look at these good genes. But yeah, so you can see that's basically what a Z move looks like, and each player is allowed to use a Z move. You can use 1 Z move per game, and basically they were just really, really good. They did a lot of damage, right? Let's take a look at another way to use Z moves. This is a replay from a tournament I played, a Premier Challenge, and Z moves could also be used on status moves. Sometimes they gave speed boosts, sometimes they gave like different boosts to different stats, sometimes they raise your crit. every single Z move had like a different type of effect. So we're going to be talking about how Z Sleep Powder works. Z Sleep Powder still has the base effect of Sleep Powder, but it gives you a speed boost. Z Splash, I believe, gave you a +3 boost to your attack, right? Every single one had different effects. I'm actually in one of like False Swipe Gaming's videos talking about the value of like Z Sleep Powder, specifically on Butterfree in 2017. So you can see you're able to get the boost to speed on your Butterfree, sleep the Marowak, and then sleep the Lele, and then next turn you sleep the Marowak, right? So there is a lot of value to be had with Z moves. And so I like Z moves a lot more, and I think they're a lot more balanced than something like Terastallization or Dynamax. Just because it costs your item, you have to be a little bit more proactive and a little bit more defensive around your team building. Yeah, Z Trick Room Hypnosis Bronzong was a classic. Yeah, didn't it raise your accuracy? That's super nice, right? Because you still got the effect of the Z move. Like when you use a max move, remember they turn into like Protect, but when you use a Z move on a status move, they still actually use the effect of the move. So yeah, where would I put Z Crystals? I'm actually a believer that Z Crystals are like a good mechanic. I'm gonna put them in the A tier, right? Z moves when Ultra Necrozma was around, yeah, you can use for like the light that burns the sky, and all of them had like crazy cool animations and cool names and stuff like that. I really felt that like they were basically like better patched version in some situations of gems, right? Because gems were basically like a single target nuke as well. They made each move that it was boosted off of a 1.5 higher damage, kind of like a good damage modifier, right? But the cool thing about Z moves is it was like more damage, and they were like added extra effects, and it was a little bit deeper, but you could only use one per game, right? So it was a really, really cool mechanic. I think it was fun. For aggressive players, Z moves were great, because you can utilize them to get that one turn pin. And even if your opponent protected, you still did that like 20% damage like through the protect, which means next turn you could still get the KO. So let's start taking a look at Mega Evolution. And Mega Evolution has been featured in a lot of formats. You've seen it in VGC 2014, 2015, 2016, 2018, 2019. It's in the Let's Go games. It's in Legends ZA, right? So it's in a lot of different games, right? So let's take a look at a couple different examples of what Mega Evolution looks like, at least in like older games. So for you guys here, I have the 2014 NorCal Regional Championships that I played at. And so I'm the player on the bottom. I have Kangaskhan and Lucario, and my Kangaskhan is the one holding its Mega Stone. Now Kangaskhan is by far and away the most like popular choice for Mega Evolution, because it makes it so its moves hit twice. You get like the big hit from the Mega's Kangaskhan, and then you get a second little baby hit from the baby. So this is basically Urshifu Rapid Strike before Urshifu Rapid Strike existed, right? Because you're able to like, look at this damage that we do here. Look at this damage. My Kang's not even a like full attack Kang, by the way. We're able to do a ton of damage here. So you're able to go straight up for a massive return. So return is boosted by your friendship. So it's not even like the strongest move, but look at that damage. This is a full HP defense Rotom, by the way. Full HP defense Rotom takes as much damage. Yeah, and when you combine it with moves like Power Up Punch, Kangaskhan was able to do that damage and get a Swords Dance, because each effect had like a chance to activate, right? So you could pair it with like Bite and have 2 chances to flinch. You can pair it with Crunch, get 2 chances to lower their defense, right? There's so much cool things that you could do with Kangaskhan. And there was a bunch of other Pokemon that could utilize Mega Evolution correctly as well. Things like Tyranitar, base form Tyranitar comes out, set the Sandstream. If someone changes the weather on you, you could Mega Evolve it and then reset the Sandstream, because their other ability is Sandstream. There are other different Mega Evolution Pokemon like Manectric. If you send out base form Manectric and you Mega Evolve, you gain Intimidate. So there's so many different ways to play Mega Evolution. Like our opponent right here is actually using a Mega Abomasnow, I believe. And if we fast forward in this game just a little bit, we're able to see kind of what it brings to the table. I believe they have Mega... No, did they have... They did. Yeah, there it is. So let's fast forward this game a little bit. Mega Abomasnow about to be popping off. Gaining a lot of bulk, a lot of offense here. But by this point, I've already, gotten pretty ahead in this game. So they drop a Protect on Garchomp, and I think my Kangaskhan, I side Power Up Punch my Talonflame in this game, so I just am able to like dump truck their Abomasnow here. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Look at that. Woo! See, Kangaskhan, that's the power of Mega Evolution right there. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So we're talking about that Power Punch play. I made that same play right here. I read a double Protect from my opponent, and I was able to basically, you'll see what I do here. So where was it? It was right. Sorry, it was right here. Here. Let's go. Yeah, I'm already in the middle of it. Let's go into it. Power Punch. So I'm able to side Power Up Punch my Talon from reading a double Protect, and then I basically get a Swords Dance off. So sick. The amount of versatility that came with it was really, really good. So yeah, that's basically a little bit of what Mega Evolution brings to the table. Let's take a look at another thing that we do here. Is there an ad? No, it's not an ad. All right, where was I going to talk about Mega Evolution here? So another thing that Mega Evolution can do, let's talk about this lead here. I have Rotom, Heat, and Sceptile. And so you could really be aggressive with Mega Evolution too if you wanted to. Things like Sceptile gained a lot of value here. Sceptile also gains like different abilities like Lightning Rod. So I could use like a Choice Scarf, Rotom, Heat, right? Hit everything on the board, both my opponents, fish for the 30% chance to para, give my Sceptile a +1 boost to its special attack, and then one-shot basically anything with like a massive +1 Leaf Storm, right? Really, really cool stuff that you're able to do with Mega Evolution that you would not be able to do in like previous forms of Pokemon. So I think Mega Evolution as a mechanic is very good. It costs your item. You can only Mega Evolve one Pokemon per game. Very, very cool mechanic. I'm going to put it in the S tier. I'm going to put it in the S tier. I think it's a really, really fun mechanic. There's a drawback. Open sheet, close sheet, you kind of know what's going to Mega. And whenever, like basically, when things are like supposed to Mega, they can't also have a sash or like a scarf or like a weird weakness policy. Like there's so much less cheese in these Mega Evolution formats because the Mega has to be the thing that's being empowered. So basically, the checkmate piece that your opponent has is honest, right? That's the thing about it. Like Mega Kangaskhan can only do Mega Kangaskhan things. He can't be Mega Kangaskhan and have a Choice Scarf, right? So it's really, really good. I think that they're very honest, which means because they're so honest, they can lose to screenplay or they can lose to speed control. They can lose through actual game mechanics, not stuff like 50-50 terrestrializations to gain immunities for random reasons, right? That's why I think Mega Evolution is really, really good. Now, we're actually going to take a look at gems, and gems were really, really cool back in like Gen 5, so Black and White, VGC 2011, 2012, 2013 going into Black and White 2. Gems were really unique because what they did is they made any move that was being used by these gems get a 1.5 power boost the first turn that they're used. So if your opponent like protects or swaps, it's gone. The boost is gone, and unlike things like Z moves and stuff like that, they do not go through protect. So you got to be really, really like deliberate in how you actually utilize these gems, but there's so much more damage. It's so much more damage, right? So let's take a look at a couple examples of what gems bring to the table here. We're gonna take a look at this. This is one of the first regionals I ever went to. And this is the first turn of that regional. So we lead Crest Scrafty versus Jellicent Hariyama. And we're going to show a little bit of what gems do here. So basically, they go fake out Trick Room shenanigans. I can't really stop it. We're going to drop Protect with our Scrafty. We're going to flip the Trick Room back. And then now they know that we have a pin on their Jellicent. This is back when regionals were best of one. They were closed team sheet, which means you had to really, really outplay stuff. They go for a Water Spout on this Jellicent, which normally that would be boosted by Water Gem, but it wasn't in this situation, so we take those. We flip it back. Remember, since we went for Fake Out Light Screen on turn 1, we were super safe at mitigating this stuff. This was also like 14, 15 years ago. So it's a little bit of a different looking game, right? So we know that they have to swap because Scrafty has the big pin with Crunch. This is before Knockoff was big. So they go into the Rhyperior. We're going to keep them honest here. And they're going to protect with their Hariyama because they're trying to avoid the double up from Scrafty and Crest going into Psychic into that slot. We read that. We get a Reflect just in case they did want to trade. And we just look at this damage. Look at this damage off Scrafty's Crunch. Look at it. It's so big. So Crunch boosted by the Dark Gem, which would have KO'd that Jellicent. It's technically made for things like Cresselia. Look at this damage. That's a Rhyperior, right? That's a critical hit, but that's a Rhyperior. And so, like, realistically, that Rhyperior is now within range for, like, an Ice Beam or a Psychic on Crest. That is so much damage. Like, you may be thinking, like, that's not a lot of damage. Come on. This was like, 12, 13, 14 years ago. So, like, the power scaling, you're not supposed to be able to do that, all right, back then. You don't just one-shot things with like neutral moves, even on crits. So gems are just a lot of damage. Just take a look at a different example of what gems really bring to the table here. I have the same team I'm playing on Showdown here. This is a little bit of a newer game because they made 2013 lobby on Showdown kind of recently, but I'm using the same team here, and I'm going to go basically for a big Water Spout pin here. So we have the Fake Out, we have the Water Spout, we fake out the Amoonguss to stop the Spore, and look at the damage here. We have the Water Gem boosted Water Spout from Jellicent. This is like super, super standard stuff. They even pivot in like good mons. I have it slowed down just a little bit. So like Water Spout, Water Gem boosted, it says it right there. Look at that damage. Doing like that much damage to a bulky conch, that's ridiculous. You're not supposed to be able to utilize like that much damage. Now he's pinned by anything. Very, very cool stuff. So I actually like gems the most. Gems are by far and away my favorite mechanic of all time because I feel like they're like Z moves, but they're not as explored. And I feel like any Pokemon, you saw in both those situations, I double dip stab, but like you don't have to have a stab move be the thing you gem. You can have like a really weird tech that you kind of like, for example, like you could have a Salamence and you could have like some attack investment, maybe a little bit of special attack investment with like a weird unique nature like Naive, and you could have like Outrage or Dragon Claw and Draco Meteor, and that Dragon Gem will boost either one you actually use first. So you can actually be a delete button on both physical and special at the same side. So like gems, in my opinion, are like the smart man's, the team prepper, the guy that wants to solve every single problem. The gem can do that. And the reason why gems used to be able to do that is because they used to be a 1.5 boost. Nowadays, you have the normal gem, it's just a 1.3 boost. It's not the same thing. Not at all. You would just use like a Life Orb instead. That's Life Orb damage. 1.5 is significantly more. It's like a Life Orb and a Charcoal at the same time, right? It's a lot. It's holding 2 items, right? So it's a lot of damage. And the stronger the base move that you use it off of, like an Outrage or something, the higher the multiplier is. So it's a really, really cool mechanic. I would really implore you guys to like go, maybe if you ever see the option to play like, 2013 or 2011 or 2012 on Showdown or something, try playing it. Try utilizing some gems. You're going to get a lot of value out of it because like it is just a whole heck of a lot of damage. It can turn even weak things like a Jellicent and Scrafty into like major damage dealers. So think about using them if you've never used it before. The last one I wanted to talk about was damage reduction berries. Now, I wasn't initially going to include these because like everyone knows how these work, but in Gen 4, there weren't really like a lot of, mechanics that were that popular. And we're coming at this from most of a singles standpoint because like realistically, I didn't play a lot of VGC back in the end of Gen 4. I played mostly starting in Gen 5. But damage reduction berries are significant. If we were to take a look at some highlights and stuff over here, I think I have like a highlight from, it's another Gen 5 game, but like look at the value that damage reduction berries can bring to the table. This Heatran is going to be able to go for some moves here, specifically like a Heat Wave. So Heat Wave into Aqua Berry, right? It's Aqua Berry Scizor, and look at the calc here. It's alive. I know it must be EV trained to do that, otherwise you wouldn't have Aqua Berry, right? So it's always EV trained to live that. So like, that's the sort of stuff you could say, why didn't they just use a Sash? And the reason they didn't use a Sash is because they might have been using somewhere else. They might not want to like waste the resource there. Aqua Berry is just usable. I know in a couple of the regionals that I went to back then, I did use Aqua Berry. I used Aqua Berry Metagross on that team that you just saw me use a little while ago. So I really do like the value that damage reduction berries bring to the table. And I think in every format since, damage reduction berries have at some point like broken off like a part of the game. So I think damage reduction berries are actually a really, really cool mechanic. I would put them probably behind Z crystals up here in the A tier. So that's where I would rank my list. Let me know, did you guys like having all the stuff in the background, the moves showing the examples, showing like the different, effects of the moves and having me kind of go over the history behind them? Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of these things and let me know what you think about the background stuff. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Peace, and I'll see you guys in the next one.